Hello, and welcome to a developer commentary for the Imperishable Void, the Minecraft map that I released about a year ago. The map actually came out on January 10th of last year. It's currently January 9th, the day that I'm recording this. I originally wanted to make this video, shortly after the map came out, but then I got, preoccupied with a few other videos. But then I was going to record it at the beginning of this month, and then I didn't get around to it, so I'm doing it now. This video is going to detail how the map was made and why we made certain choices with the development process. So first of all, I want to talk about the soundtrack that we chose for the map and why we chose the songs that we did. So originally, I actually wanted all of the music in the map to be from Risk of Rain, mostly from Risk of Rain 2 Survivors of the Void, which is the album where this song here is from. The song that you're hearing right now, used at the intro part of the map, is called Prelude in D-flat major, and it is an arrangement of the classical piece by Frédéric Chopin, and this arrangement was made by Chris Christodoulou, or Christodoulou, however you pronounce his name, who is the main composer, or at least was the main composer for Risk of Rain 2 when this DLC came out. Now, we did use other songs from other games eventually, but because of the original idea being all Risk of Rain music, that's why, most of the songs in the map are from Risk of Rain, especially with the ending of the map just being chock full of Risk of Rain music, but we'll talk about that later. The elevator music is taken from the song Down We Go from the game Psychopomp, and it's just a short snippet of the full song. There are actually many references to Psychopomp in this map, that's just one of them. Go play it. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is how the rooms are actually placed in on the map. So you see here is a 3x3 grid with 9 total spaces. And when I create a room, you can see that it places the room on one of the grid spaces. And when you complete a room, then it shows you a couple different options. In this case, I have 3 different options because those are the available grid spaces here. But let's say I went to the right and completed the room, you'll see this way and this way are blocked off because, well, there's no grid space for it to put a room there. So the only option you have is here. And that's basically how the room placement works in the map. Every single area has just its own unique grid, with the prison just being a simple 3x3. And so you're probably thinking, what happens when it runs out of space? Like if I go this way, well then there's nowhere else for it to place a room. Well, when that happens, you get the elevator key. That's actually the win condition of the map. You want the game to run out of spaces to put in rooms, because then you get the key and you can move on to the next level. Which means in each area there is a minimum and maximum amount of rooms. In the prison there is 4 if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, but in other levels there are different minimums, and the maximum for the prison is 8 if you just go all the way around. And yeah, that's basically the main gameplay loop of this entire map explained in just a few minutes. So how all of these rooms were made is by basically using an asset library, which is what this is here. You can see that we have all these different assets saved into structure blocks. When we started working on the map, both Axiom and World Edit were not available for this version of the game, which is 1.20.3. So we were actually forced to use structure blocks for copy and pasting stuff for the first couple of weeks of us working on the map, which is pretty funny. And even after World Edit and Axiom were available for the version of the game, we actually still used structure blocks to put in assets just because we were used to it and it was faster for us to do. But you can see there's all kinds of assets here, such as this ribcage with a chest, this coffin with a chest, and Goober Jr. with a chest, as well as, piles of rubble, cages, lamps, etc. And we basically placed in assets into each room until it was filled up, and we have a few different layouts for each different wall type. And the mini boss room has its own special wall with a stained glass window with my skin on it, as well as AvidMc's skin on it, who is the co-creator of the map. If I fly over here, you can actually see a couple of unused rooms. These were made before we had the idea of just making asset libraries and copy and pasting stuff. Instead, we were planning on manually making each individual room type. But we scrapped that idea because it was way too time consuming, and we just decided to do this instead, which took a lot less time. It was actually more fun. Like, for example, here's the asset library for the lobby level and the tower, and it was a lot of fun to work on these assets and place them into the rooms. And here you can see all of the different possible rooms that you can get. Now with the offices, we actually did something a bit different where we did not have any assets, and instead AvidMc just kind of made a maze with each room made out of these white concrete walls to make it feel just like a lot more liminal, and it definitely works. I feel like I'm in the back rooms when I'm in this area. With the conservatory, instead of what we did is have 3 different room variations, I guess you can call these, with a lot of water, no water, and some water that's also like further down. And there are 4 different variants for each of those, with one of each being a mini-boss room. The conservatory is interesting because it actually has the least amount of possible room types. And the way that they were placed in is pretty interesting because this is what the grid for the conservatory actually looks like. And each of these squares here is basically just a 32 by 32 area with smaller 16 by 16 areas highlighted in yellow. So now moving back on to the prison, because there's a few other things to note. The music in this level is the song A Placid Island of Ignorance from the Risk of Rain 2 Survivors of the Void album. You can really tell I wanted pretty much all the songs in the map to be from that specific album, because it really fits the map. I really like it. And the other thing that I want to mention is in regards to the escape sequence. Playtesters in the beginning kind of didn't like that they needed to run all the way back to the elevator each time, but the reason for backtracking is so that you can actually remember the room layouts. So when you get to level 5, you know what to do. And this is also the part where knowing the minimum amount of rooms you need to do for each area becomes a lot more useful. Because after you get the elevator key on level 5, everything respawns and you need to run back to the elevator in a limited amount of time. If you run out of time, by the way, you just instantly die, so have fun with that. And oh my god, there are so many babies here. I hate this. God damn it. Also, you can see the screen just gradually getting more and more red and ominous, which may or may not cause epilepsy. I'm just gonna advance to the next floor so you don't have to deal with that. The music for the escape sequence is called Devil's Meat Grinder from the game Ocho, which is another roguelike game, and was the first non-Risk of Rain song that we added to the map. It is, however, quite edited from the original version, because it has like a beeping timer heart rate monitor thing, and at the end of the song it just completely flatlines so you know that you're about to die. So that's fun. So now we're at the first boss area. The music here is the same as in the intro, except it is detuned and also has a like howling noise sound effect layered on top of it. I'm not going to go too much or at all actually into the lore of this map in the video, because a lot of it is very vague and I wanted people to like figure out what the hell it actually means. But one thing that I will tell you is that this stained glass here definitely gives a hint as to who the boss actually is. And if you don't recognize this, well then you should go watch a certain series by a certain YouTuber. And as a side note, it was actually really cool to get Leon SBU himself as well as a few other people to play the map with me for a video. That was fun. Alright, so here is the first boss arena, and it's pretty big, actually. But to shatter the illusion a little bit, these pillars are not actually connected to the ground at all. And that's because we're using, like, some sort of forced perspective here where you can't actually see the bottom of the pillars from any angle, so we just did not build a bottom of the pillar. So, yeah. So anyways, now for the first boss, the Imbrued Warden. Being the first boss, he's the most simple, meaning he's, like, the easiest to parry and has the least amount of attacks. The one attack in particular that trips up people is this one, the laser. There are pretty much 2 ways to dodge it. The first way is to hide behind a pillar, like this, where the beam will just not reach you, because the blocks are in the way. But the second way to dodge the attack is basically just to run up super close to the boss, and kind of get to the side of him or even behind him, because his turn speed is very limited, so he really just cannot hit you if you're, like, directly in front of him with that attack. Avid had a lot of trouble dodging that attack, and felt like he needed more movement speed to do it, but you really don't. Just run up. Sometimes you might get clipped a little bit, but it's really nothing to worry about. What is actually more bothersome about this fight is the contact damage. We did not want you to get, like, too close to the boss. We decided that while he's running around, he actually has contact damage on his legs. And I know that a lot of players dislike it. I personally don't think it's the best design, but it's fine. Like, it's not a super big deal. Alright, so he should be going to second phase pretty soon here. Yep, there we go. So in second phase, his hand and face explodes. and then his sword gets lit on fire. So in second phase, he runs faster and does more damage with his like sword swing attacks, as they have these added fire particles to them, as you can see there. On top of that, he has one new attack, being this one, where he just throws a few like bombs on the ground that leave a damaging radius. Basically has just a little bit of area denial, but it's really not that big of a deal because of how big and open the arena is. So there are two attacks that this guy has that can be parried. The first one being this sword swing here, and the second one being this leaping attack here that can also be parried. The timing for pretty much every attack that you can parry from a custom boss is the same, that being 5 ticks or a quarter of a second. You really don't need to parry this guy, like, at all, but later bosses, including the Ringmaster, well, it's a lot more important to parry those guys, so getting down the timings now will absolutely help you in the future. The music for this boss is the song Guardian's Haven from Dead Cells, which I'm really glad we chose this because, well, A, it fits really well, and B, it pretty much rationalized me adding even more Dead Cells music to other parts of the map. And now I'm going to do something a little bit special. I'm actually going to pull up the animations in Blockbench for that boss, so you can get a better look at him. Alright, so here is the file for the Warden in Blockbench here. You can see he has 3 different variants. The first one just being his default, the second one being with his head and arm being all gory, but his sword isn't on fire, and the third one is the sword is on fire. So he actually has 3 different walking animations that just have different speeds to them, with the first one being very slow, and the second one being quite a lot faster, and the third one, which you can only use in second phase, being super fast. And just so you can understand how much time you're given to dodge the laser beam, the attack basically comes out about there, at like 3.25 seconds. Which means you have over 3 seconds of time to react to this attack and either get away from it behind a pillar or get close to him. So it's a lot easier to dodge than what it originally might seem. Now, I kind of regret putting his sword, like, behind him, because, well, it does look cool, but on this animation, you can see I'm really cheating the position of that sword, especially when it returns. There isn't any point in the animation where the sword goes, like, into the ground, which is good, because that's what I try to avoid, but it still looks pretty weird for it to go to there all the way back. And there are a few frames here where the sword kind of looks a bit disjointed and off from his hand, but it all happens so fast that you really aren't paying attention to it. In the current day, I would absolutely not have an animation like that pass by, but, well, back then I kind of had lower standards, so whatever. Not to mention a time restraint. What's fun about his, like, jumping attack is if you look at the animation in Blockbench here, he really doesn't jump up, like, at all, because we're actually teleporting the boss up and then down in, like, a parabolic arc during this animation, and of course the box comes in as he slams into the ground. So yeah, there you go. So there are 2 weapons you can get from this boss, being a 50-50 between his sword and his hand. While the sword looks bigger, it's absolutely the worst of the 2 options. With the sword you can charge it up and then it goes on fire, and then you, like, just apply fire whenever you hit something with it. But oh my god, the hand of the Warden is so unbelievably overpowered. And it used to be stronger. I had to nerf it at some point. I'll put, like, the patch note up on screen right now. It used to be insane. And it still is really, really good, so I'm gonna use that for the rest of the showcase. Alright, time to descend to the garden. And here I basically just took the normal elevator music and just fucked with it. The sound effect at the end there is actually the sound effect for the dive bell from Content Warning. And then you basically just crash land into the next area, which is the garden. Mr. Milk can sell you some good items here, including the Void Bolt Tome, which you absolutely will want for the next area. This is like one of the most satisfying magic weapons in the map. Like, I actually really like using it. This area was actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to use the Survivors of the Void soundtrack for this map. The music here is the song Once in a Lullaby, which is probably my favorite song from the entirety of Risk of Rain 2. Like, when I first heard this, I absolutely knew that I wanted to put it in one of my own projects, and then that's kind of what made me justify even coming up with the idea for the Imperishable Void in the first place. Like, seriously, I heard that song, and it literally was so good that it inspired an entire map. The other fun thing about the garden is the secret cave here, which eventually leads down to where you get the Windex soup. Every ACC contest, there's a running gag of putting some sort of soup item in your map, and the Windex soup was inspired by this goofy meme right here. If you eat it, you get a 50-50 of either getting +2 hearts or -2 hearts. In this case, I got lucky, so that's fun. You also get this achievement for drinking it, which I thought you would appreciate. And so now we move on to the bridge. This is like an in-between level between like the prison and the tower. And in these chests, you can get some good gear. Okay, that wasn't a good example, but you can get diamond swords and diamond armor in these chests. Oh, and by the way, there's a point of no return here where there's just a wall of barrier blocks that completely blocks you off from being able to go back to the garden. So here's a forklift. The forklift in the Imperishable Void does predate the one from Avid Adventures. I basically just took the schematic for this and just pasted it into that map. But yeah, the forklift as well as the crane over there were both originally for this level in TIP, and then I just added it to Avid Adventures as a joke. And well, it actually got added as like a real quest in the map. So now let's talk about probably the most hated enemy in the entirety of the Imperishable Void. The apparitions. We knew that we wanted a flying mob, and so I decided to make a custom little, like, Vex creature who shoots projectiles at you. Now, obviously, there is a pretty good lore reason for these guys existing, but practically, they are designed to annoy the hell out of you. And as you progress throughout the bridge level, more and more will spawn in, as well as these guys, the Undead OSHA, what I'm pretty sure it's called, yep. The apparitions cannot be one-shot with the Voidbolt Tome. It's exactly a two-shot because they have 24 health and the Voidbolt Tome does 12 damage. And that's with me playing nice. At one point in development, these guys had 25 HP, which meant you perfectly could not two-shot them, because they'd be left with half a heart. So honestly, you're welcome for not having that in the map anymore. Now, one thing that I want to do is to do some environmental storytelling with the bridge levels. So in the beginning, there's, you know, a lot of logs and barrels and forklifts and a crane. But as you progress, you see, like, burnt crates, broken forklifts, cages, blood, and there's a broken crane here, there's more burnt walls and everything. And then at the end, there's just, like, a ton of blood and also these skulls on metal spikes. So, yeah. Fun environmental storytelling, because, well, a lot of people died here. Oh, also the music for the bridge is the song Astrolab from Dead Cells, because after I added a Dead Cell song to the map with the Warden boss fight, I decided to just add a bunch more, and this was one of them. Alright, so here is OSHA Tower. Now, the floor here is actually the exact same as the floor in the prison, we just copy and pasted that asset because we did not have time to make a new one. And to ruin the illusion, this area does not have a backside, or I guess a side to it. It's basically just a front-facing facade. It's also very tall. It goes up to like Y level 800. We needed to expand the world height limit to even fit this in the map. At the time, this was the largest thing that AvidMc had ever made in Minecraft, but now, while working on HOA, he has made quite a lot of other bigger things. Oh, and the internal walls here are the same as in the area where you fight the Warden. So, yeah, there you go. So this right here is the gridded layout for the tower. It's pretty dark in here, but it's pretty dark in here, so I'll probably just like increase the brightness in post. Basically, it is a 3x3 area in the middle with also these side areas branching off. We didn't want it to be the exact same layout as the prison, so instead we made it quite a lot bigger. There's actually a few hidden details here that are pretty much impossible to see in-game. For example, there are hallways built out around pretty much the entire area, which you just cannot access ever. At the very tippy top, you can see there's some plants that were the same as in the garden, which you also just literally cannot see during normal gameplay. The music in this area is the song Vitamin from Ocho. It definitely fits considering Ocho takes place like in a mansion, and this area is pretty similar to the mansion or the manor level from Lethal Company. I'm also just going to take the time here to talk about probably the most beloved weapon in this entire map, that being the Variandel. This weapon basically takes the parry mechanics of the map and just completely breaks them. Because you can parry literally anything with this sword, even attacks that are not meant to be parried. This even includes things like fall damage or poison. Now, of course, when I designed this weapon, I didn't know how popular it was going to end up being. Because the name Variandel was basically just me coming up with, like, the most generic sounding fantasy sword name possible. And that's like the first thing that came to my mind was Variandel for whatever reason. So I wish there was like a deeper meaning to it, but no, there isn't. There really just isn't. That's all there is to it. So with this area and the next area, there's only 3 levels before the escape sequence, as opposed to the prison having 5. And that's basically just because you have to do 2 back-to-back areas before the next. So it really works out to 6 total levels. Another fun fact about the lobby is we completely nerfed poison for specifically this area. The witches in this area were just an absolute goddamn menace, so we decided to nerf poison to only last at most 5 seconds. But that only applies to the lobby. It does not apply to the conservatory at all. Now, I'm pretty sure the minimum amount of rooms you can do in the lobby is 8, which is quite a lot. It's a very big area. Like, for context, that's the maximum amount for the prison. The maximum here, however, is 10. But that's because we actually just added a hard cap. Because otherwise it would just take, like, forever to get through this level. So we just limited the amount of possible rooms they can go to 10 per floor. I do think that was a good decision because, well, this map is definitely long enough as is. And obviously not everyone is going to know the minimum room tech. God, playing it through it again now, I am just realizing how unbelievably overpowered the Hand of the Warden is. Like, without it, these rooms would just be so much harder. Really, the only mob that counters it is the witches, because they can just give themselves fire resistance. Well, that's just about everything I have to say for the lobby, so now let's move on to the next area. And this is where the players are given a split choice between the offices or the conservatory. I like this because it adds some run variety, since either option has different mobs and weapons and room types as well as a different gimmick. So here is the floor layout for the offices. It is very interesting. The minimum here is 5, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into that corner. And the maximum, I'm pretty sure, is 9 if you go there and then around. This is the only area where both the minimum and maximum amount of rooms are both odd numbers. The music in this level is the song Assassination from Ocho, which is the same game where the previous song was from as well, so. And, well, Assassination is a pretty fitting song name for this area in particular because of the snipers. These guys stand at the top level and they try to snipe you with their funny guns. You can see a red laser that kind of points to you, and it goes to fully white when they're about to shoot. And then you have a limited amount of time to, like, hide behind a wall, otherwise it will shoot you and do, like, half of your health bar. Here's another fun fact. At the top of this area, you can see an unused room, which was meant to be used in the final part of the map. The original idea for the final escape sequence was going to be you, like, running through all the previous levels all the way back to the beginning of the map. We scratched that because it was just a lot more complicated to implement, and we basically just ran out of time. So, there you go. Another fun detail about this area is that the number here actually changes as you progress. On the first level, it's 6667, and then it goes to 6668, and then level 3, it becomes the funny number. Oh, wow, damn, that's really lucky. Alright, so here are 2 of the weapons that can only be found in this area. The Golden Grimoire and the Prophet Launcher, which are both very good. The Golden Grimoire costing money, but it gives you hearts, 10 health. Yeah, pretty good. And the Prophet Launcher I can't actually use because I don't have any rockets, but oh well. By the way, speaking of, like, saving time, we just straight up reuse the exact same mini-bosses from the lobby in the offices, so there you go. We did not have time to do anything extra. This is the other weapon that's native to this area, and it gives you extra damage depending on how much gold you have in your inventory. So if I just give myself a few more stacks of gold, you can see it makes its damage going up to 10. Now as for the Prophet Launcher, this is a weapon that is super goddamn strong. With the drawback that you can very easily kill yourself with it if you're not careful. This is basically the epitome of a high risk and a high reward that also costs a shit ton of money to even use in the first place because you, of course, need the rockets, which are decently expensive. Yeah, as you can tell, the theme for this area and its weapons is that they're all based around money helping you out in some way or another. So I guess the offices can be seen as the capitalism level of this map. Also going to show off the conservatory and the gameplay here. The minimum rooms here is 4, which is the same as prison. You should go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And the maximum is 10 if you go all the way around and back to the beginning. This area is also surprisingly the biggest, but also not the biggest because, well, the bounding box extends far past the actual playable area. So this area is pretty much all about poison. That's its main gimmick. Unlike with the tower lobby, poison here is not nerfed. You can be poisoned for up to, like, 40 seconds, I'm pretty sure, is the max, actually, that a witch can apply to. Yeah, there you go, there's 40 seconds right there. The only saving grace that you have is if you complete a room, all the poison gets cleared instantly. So, unlike the offices, the conservatory actually has its own unique set of mini-bosses, one of them being the Rotman, as you can see here. Oh geez, this room. Okay, okay, this is the room with, like, a bunch of lingering potions of poison that come out of these dispensers here. Yep, there you go. I personally think this area is harder than the offices because the snipers definitely have a good amount of counterplay to them, but you're just hiding behind walls. Meanwhile, the poison is pretty much inevitable. You will get poisoned at some point. But on the bright side, as you just saw, this area has a higher chance of giving you better food. This is actually the only area where you can find golden carrots and enchanted golden apples just in the regular food chests. Okay, here's an example of a water room. So this one will have guardians as well as drowns with tridents in it. And there's the traffic breaker. So this is one of the 3 weapons that can be found native to this level. And the other 2 are the blowgun and the blackthorn tome. I do think on average, the weapons you find here are definitely worse than the ones from the offices. But I guess this area kind of makes up for that with the fact that you get better food. So in total, I definitely would prefer going to the offices over the conservatory, with really the only good thing about this level being the food drops. Now, the Blackthorn Tome is a fun weapon because you have to sacrifice health to actually attack with it, which definitely makes it a lot limited. Whereas the Tropic Breaker just simply gives you regeneration whenever you kill something with it, which is pretty good. It's not a bad weapon at all. It's just, you know, not as good as, like, the Prophet Launcher or the Golden Grimoire is. Yeah, you can tell for each area we wanted 1 melee, 1 ranged, and 1 magic weapon that were native to that specific area. The music in this area is the song Swamp from Dead Cells, which is quite the not creative name. Like, I don't know, the composer really couldn't think of anything better than just Swamp. Okay. But anyway, the song is good, and it fits the area pretty well, so I wouldn't complain if I were you. So after completing either the offices or the conservatory, you make it to the area before the second boss. The music in this area is the song Observatory from Dead Cells, and just like with the first, like, pre-boss area, it is pitched down and also has wind sound effects over it. The parkour here overall is not super hard, and also just to show it off, falling off here is not an instant death. You just get teleported back and take a little bit of hull damage. At the top of the tower, you can actually see the next area, which is the observatory. And it's kind of a fake out where you think that's going to be where you're going next, but you actually get into the vent and then you drop down into the boss arena. And so here is the second boss, the Captive Ringmaster, aka Marmalade, because it's literally just Marmalade. So this boss is where I basically decided that the players either parry or die. I am personally not actually good enough to no-hit this, but I know some of you are. The music used for this boss is the song Senior Grand Botanist from Ocho, because I wanted a more, like, fun-sounding boss theme. The first one was very intense, and this one is more so just laid back and fun. So the gimmick with this fight is she jumps up to different layers of the arena, and you can use those Jet Slayer to travel up with her. So it is a multi-layered boss fight, and goddamn it, getting my soul drained. Yeah, starting in the second phase, any of her attacks where she throws, like, an apparition bullet applies a stat effect called Soul Drain, which saps away your life and heals the boss. If you're good enough, you can parry getting soul drained, as I'm doing right here, but it really doesn't do much. Also, this boss fight, as you can see, you have no fall damage. Completely immune to fall damage, because, well, the arena really just warranted us adding that. I think this is the best boss in the entire map, by the way. And I'll show you why when I get to the point where I show off the animations for both this boss and the next one. But I do think a big part of this being my favorite boss in the map is due to the layered arena. It just makes it feel a lot more interesting than pretty much any other animated genre boss I've seen. Also, she just has a lot of attacks, by the way. And as you can see, most of them can be parried if you're good enough. If you know what you're doing, this fight actually really doesn't last that long, because she doesn't really have a ton of health, although it might feel like that at times, especially if you keep getting your soul drained. But you know, if you just parry pretty much anything she throws at you, then it should last not too long. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, if you stand too far away from her for an extended period of time, she will just teleport down to you. That was basically just to punish players from keeping their distance and not engaging with the gimmick of the boss fights. Alright, he's about to go down here. There we go. So before moving on, I'm going to show you the animations for that boss in Blockbench. Alright, so here I am in the project file in Blockbench for the Ringmaster. And you can see she has two variants, with the Phase 2 variant having the blue ring blades instead of just a generic gray ones. Her animations look kind of funny without the particles, like with the 1-2 cross attack. When it gets to around this part, it's kind of silly if you look at it from the side as she's leaning forward and then doing the third attack. There's some interesting things here that you might not be able to tell, such as her kind of shifting a little bit to the side before returning to place during her spinning slashes attack. And also, yes, her leaping cross animation keyframes are the same as in the 1-2 cross attack. Those are just the exact same animations, keyframes copied over. Now the backflip animation in here, just like with the Warden's jump, does not have her actually moving up and backwards during the animation, because all that movement is done using teleports. And same thing goes with her animation for jumping from a high platform to a low one. Now with her Soul Flame Tornado animation, I did not actually properly, like, center her foot here, so it's, you know, looks a little weird when you see it without the particles. But in-game, the particle effects kind of just obstruct that, so you don't actually notice. And speaking of, her death animation just has her falling over on the ground, and then just stops there, and then her model is deleted as the screen fades to white. Overall, I think that is the best animated boss in the entire map. It's genuinely my favorite one that I made. So the two weapons you get from this boss are the Enthralled Ring Blades and the Apparition Lamp. With Ring Blades, you have an empty offhand to get double attack speed, but even with the slower attack speed, you can still throw out a Ring Blade. And that Ring Blade will come back to you when it hits the surface, or after just traveling for a set amount of distance. The Apparition Lamp is actually modeled to look the same as these, like, lanterns around the arena. This item is interesting because it allows you to apply Soul Drain, which, you know, is like the effect that the boss has that sucks up your HP and gives it back to her. Yeah, you can apply that to enemies with this to get some regeneration effect. And now let's go up to the Observatory. I think right there is the most subtle transition pretty much in the entire map. The elevator that you actually go into is down here, right? You click that button and then it brings you up. And the exit elevator is just directly above that other one, so you're just being teleported. And because of that, we just made it completely seamless with no fade out needed. So the observatory is probably the only building that was entirely built by me, and AvidMc didn't actually have any hand in the construction of this. Maybe I added a little bit too much detail to the outside, considering you can barely see it from these angles anyways. But anyways, this area is actually kind of a meeting room for OSHA in the lore, fun fact. This big chair is where the chairman would sit, and then all these smaller chairs around here would be for the other employees. And also there's these test tube with different test subjects in them, and with one of them being broken open. Again, make that what you will in the lore. So just like with the prison, the shop in the garden after the prison, we wanted Mr. Milk to sell you items here in case you miss them later, such as netherite armor as well as the variant element and the Necronomicon. He also sells enchanted golden apples here, which he also sells in the offices and maybe the conservatory, I can't remember. I know the golden milk bombs are only in the offices, though. And this is also the only place where you can get an Unbreaking 2 shield, which is not super helpful at this point, but whatever. Oh yeah, and you can also buy money rockets here in case you need to stock up. The music in the observatory is the same song that was played before the Ringmaster, except it's not pitched down and does not have any effects on it. Alright, so now going on to the next part of the map called the Ascension. Now, the interesting thing about this area is that you kind of learn that there is more than one tower. Yeah, the first ocean tower that you saw was not the only one. There's a few others. And in this level, there's this, like, 45-degree funicular railway that goes up, but, you know, it's completely broken, so you have to parkour. It's a pretty hard parkour course, so I'm not gonna do the full thing. But just like with the parkour section before the Ringmaster, if you fall off, then you will just take fall damage and be teleported back instead of just instantly dying. I also made the decision to allow you to like auto-step up one block in this area, just because otherwise it would be really annoying to constantly hold jump to get up this staircase here. Also, there are mobs here. They're just not very strong, and they're kind of a pusher for this part. I don't know why I even added them. They're really just here just to be a small little challenge. Also, before I forget to mention, the music in this area is the song Con Lentitud de Poderosa. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, I probably didn't. Anyways, that's a song from Risk of Rain 2. The ending of the map actually has, like, the most amount of Risk of Rain music out of anywhere else, by the way. And as you complete the parkour, you are given one last Risk of Rain reference with, this ha 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 text. You then make it to the other side, and there's a new elevator design here, so that's cool. Alright, and here is the lead up to the final boss of the entire map. And I want to talk about this carpet design. So this carpet is actually the areas in the map, fun fact. See this cage-looking thing over here? Yeah, that's the prison. This area over here is the bridge, and then this is the first OSHA tower with the observatory on the top. And this over here is the two other OSHA towers. You also see this exact same design again right here carved into the wall, by the way. It's a very subtle detail that not really that many people will notice, but it's there. And the music in this area is the song Mausoleum from Dead Cells. And just like with the previous, like, pre-boss anticipation tracks, it is pitched down and has Howling Wind sound effect over top of it. Also, Force Perspective continues yet again, because this arena does not have a backside or anything on the sides, like, whatsoever. And of course, these towers just have nothing on their backsides either. They're just front-facing facades. So anyways, welcome to the final boss fight. So this boss is definitely quite a lot. And the music for it is, of course, the final boss theme from Risk of Rain, that being You're Gonna Need a Bigger Ukulele. Although I did actually slightly edit the song to remove different parts of it. Also, holy hell, that's loud. I'm gonna greatly decrease my volume. Jesus. So the Architect is the most complex and probably the hardest boss in the entire map. He just has a huge variety of different attacks that will have, like, a bunch of different effects on them, like a bunch of lightning explosions and whatnot. And he just does not stop moving. Like, he gets away from you, he uses an attack immediately afterwards. You are pretty much never safe. Which I think is good for a final boss, even though I needed to nerf him a few times during development because he was a bit over the top. There are some attack effects that you will see in the second phase that actually used to be in the first phase as well before I removed them from that phase because, well, it's too much. And there's also, you know, a lot of lightning projectiles here. I kind of just spammed the same effect over and over constantly because, well, it looks good. Especially with this attack here, there is just a lot that you have to dodge all at once. It is, yeah, it's a lot. Like, I'm not even good enough to consistently beat my own boss. What does that say about me? And remember, this is a roguelike map. If you die to this guy, you go back to the very, very beginning and have to start over and do everything that I showed again before you can come back to try again. Is it punishing? Yes, it's actually a little bit too punishing, but I don't care because it's really cool. Also, like, people have no hit this fight, so whatever, skill issue. Alright, so in the second phase, he has a few new attacks, and also a lot of effects on previous attacks. For example, this Slam Down now creates more lightning bolts as well. He also has this one, where he just creates a lot of lines of lightning. I'm trying to get him to do the running attack. Not this one, the one where he, like, runs and then swings his pickaxe up. Yep, this one. So this attack now creates lightning bolts on it in the second phase as well. That was the other one I want to show. Maybe I should have put a flashing lights, like, epilepsy warning on this map just because of this one boss fight, but it's fine, don't worry. Alright, there we go, I beat him. First try, baby. I would show off the, the animations for that boss, but, well, there's another one immediately after this. So, yeah, there you go. So your screen darkens, and then it reappears, and there you go. The real final boss of TIV, the Imperishable one. Also nicknamed Goober, by the way. Like, seriously, in the finals, this guy's name is actually Goober, it's not even a joke. And the music for this fight is also a song from Survivors of the Void, that being The Face of the Deep. And, even from the beginning, I knew for a goddamn fact that I wanted to use this specific song as the final boss. This wasn't even my original idea for a final boss, but the song fit anyways, so I did it. And of course he bobs his head to the jazz music, which is fun. Now this is probably the boss I'm the least proud of. I mean, he is very easy, to be fair. Like, the main difficulty of the end of the map comes with the Architect, not Goober. But that's not even the real reason why I'm kind of disappointed in my work here. The real reason is because pretty much every single one of his attacks just reuses keyframes. I'll talk about it more when I get to the animations. You can even tell without looking at that this guy reuses quite a lot of animation keyframes. Alright, so this is the one new attack he has in the second phase, where he basically just spawns in a bunch of mini-bosses from the tower. For each one that you kill, he takes a little bit of damage, but for each one that you don't kill, he gets healed, as you can see there. Which means that this boss has all four of what I like to call the four horsemen of boss gimmicks. The first one being area denial with, this meteor and the black hole and the, enclosing circle attack. And you can also summon enemies and can heal off of those summons as well. Oh god. Ow! Okay. Can I please not die to Goober? That would be embarrassing. And of course, the fourth horseman of boss gimmicks is with this attack, where he sets your max HP to half a heart. Of course, that has counterplay, you can just stand in the circle to avoid getting your health decreased. Despite having all these, different, usually very annoying boss gimmicks, I don't think that it's a bad boss by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I think it's pretty easy, but I don't think it's bad, at all. I'm actually proud of, the fun factor in this fight, although I do think it's a bit too easy, and I do think the animations were rushed. But yeah, that was the final boss of the entire map, so let's go see the animations for it. I'm actually going to start off with the animations for the Architect. So this animation here, where he's sitting in his chair, is rightfully called Sukuna. I mean, he's literally doing the Sukuna pose, what do you want from me? And you can see here, when he teleports to exit his chair, I am just immediately snapping his model to be in a different position. Right there. So let's talk about just how rushed some of these animations were, because I basically had, no time to make the final two bosses, by the way. I'm actually going to put this in, not 25%, maybe 50% speed, so you can see it better. So on this animation here, that pickaxe moving up to meet the hands looks terrible. It's barely even connected to his hand there. And then as it's coming down, I can't see it here. Yeah, it kind of moves to the side and kind of clips through the hand there before reaching the ground. It doesn't look good, man. I didn't have any time. Same thing with the running upswing. You can see there's a lot of keyframes here, because I just had to manually place them in to make sure that the pickaxe doesn't look weirdly disjointed on any of these frames. But then it didn't even matter, because, well, I barely even smoothed out the animation of the pickaxe returning back to its default position, which causes it to look absolutely atrocious on some frames. Who the hell let me get away with this? This is terrible. Also, yes, there's, phase 2 transition attack animation just reuses all the other keyframes from all those other animations. So now moving on to the Imperishable one, aka Goober. His default stance is a T-pose. So here is the most ridiculous animation I have ever made in my life. Him swaying side to side and bobbing his head. You really cannot see his tail swinging back and forth in the game because it's below the arena, but it's there. I even have like these spines on his backside, which you basically never see, so yay. So let's talk about reused keyframes. You can see this attack uses those keyframes, and then the meteors also uses the same keyframes. It's like he moves his hands up this time, and then his darkness attack uses those keyframes again, except this time he moves his hands there and then claps them together. Ooh, how special. And then his attack where he creates summons, yeah, it's the same goddamn keyframes, except he moves his hands up later. Wow, look at that. Even this animation where he creates like the circle around you that encloses you, if you look at the animation for the black hole, it's basically the same keyframes, except he's just pointing with that one. Oh, and by the way, when he dies, he literally just curls up into a ball like that. That's because this black hole is what is covering him up. This black hole actually does have two animations. This one just being for the regular black hole attack, where it, expands and then shrinks. But then this animation here, I have to zoom out a lot because the black hole gets really big and basically consumes the boss and then disappears. But I am glad that despite how blatantly rushed those two bosses are and how many mistakes there are with their animations, they are still fun, and I'm glad that people enjoyed playing the map and enjoyed the ending of it. So as for the two weapons you get from that boss, there is the magic weapon, the Cube of Command, where you're just using the lightning attack that the Architect has. The second one is this giant pickaxe with a very funny name on it. And with this, when you hold right click, you imbue the weapon with lightning, and then if I attack something, it'll create a big, electric shock and do some AoE damage. Anyways, moving on. So the tower in the ending here, including, this part of the arena where there's a giant chunk taken out of the wall, this is actually just a completely different area than the other one. You can see this arena over here is where you fight Avid, and the other one where you fight Goober is quite a ways away. So we just copy and pasted this area and then just made changes to it. Which also includes all the lights being off because they were replaced with blocks of netherite. And if you somehow do manage to get to the other side here, you'll see there's no elevator, and the chest with the lore book in it is just missing. And then when you get near the end, bigger blocks appear, and then you are dropped down to the bottom of the towers. And now it's time for the most ridiculous edit I ever made to a song for this map. So yeah, that is the song Double Effing Rainbow Returns from the game Risk of Rain Returns. Except I just edited the hell out of it. I'm pretty sure there's like 10 or 11 different audio layers on that track. At least at the beginning. Afterwards, it's just a regular song. Also, here's a pro tip for anyone who's trying to speedrun the map. You can just jump off of this part here, and then if you time your parry correctly, you can just completely mitigate the fall damage and then just run straight to the rocket ship and just completely ignore the parkour section. You are given a ton of time anyways, so, you don't really need to do that to beat the map. But if you are trying to optimize this for speedrunning, that is the most optimal strat. And then you just run up to the rocket and you press the button, and then there you go. That's the map done. And in the credits, the song used is the 2023 remaster of Coalescence from Risk of Rain Returns. And of course, this hallway here takes you back to the very beginning of the map, and you just drop down, and there you are. That's the Imperishable Void. So I hope you enjoyed this developer commentary of the map of, going over some of our decisions and how things were made, as well as the animations for each of the bosses, as well as just my general thoughts on this map. Now, it is very, very far from perfect, but that's okay because, well, we were given 2.5 months to make it. In spite of being imperfect, I'm not gonna update it. Ever. And that's because I want this to just stay as some project that me and my friend made in 2.5 months. Nothing more, nothing less. And if I added stuff to it or changed stuff after it came out, that would kind of defeat the purpose of it being for a map jam. At least in my eyes. If someone else wanted to do that for their ACC submission, that would be totally fine. This is just a standard that I hold myself to. And I mean, after all, me and AvidMc are currently busy with our new map, that being Hero of Amadeus. So if you want to see the development process for that, go watch our devlog series. And that is everything that I have to say, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.